Have you ever held a strange object in your hands, turning it over and over, your mind racing with questions? Something that looks like it was made for a purpose, but what that purpose was, no one seems to know. Across the world, buried in dusty museum archives, tucked away in forgotten corners of history, there are tools and artifacts so enigmatic, even the brightest archaeologists and historians scratch their heads. These aren't just oddities, they're puzzles left behind by civilizations long gone, whispering secrets we still can't decipher. Today, we're diving deep into the mystery of 25 of these bizarre objects, each one a tantalizing riddle waiting to be solved. Picture this, a tool crafted with precision, its edges worn smooth by hands that vanished centuries ago. Who held it? What was it built to do? Some of these artifacts seem almost familiar, like distant cousins to tools we use today, yet their true functions remain just out of reach. Others are so alien in design, they might as well have come from another world. From twisted metal rods that defy explanation to intricately carved stones with no clear use, these objects challenge everything we think we know about the past. And that's what makes them so fascinating. They're reminders that history isn't always a neatly written story. Sometimes it's a question mark. This isn't just a list of strange objects. It's a journey into the unknown, a chance to walk alongside explorers and scholars as they grapple with these enduring mysteries. You'll see tools that have sparked wild theories, some plausible, others bordering on the fantastical. Could one have been an ancient medical instrument? Was another meant for rituals lost to time? Every item on this list has a story, even if we've only uncovered fragments of it. So settle in, because by the end, you might just find yourself staring at your own everyday objects a little differently, wondering what future generations will make of the things we've left behind. Imagine uncovering a small, hollow bronze object buried in the earth for centuries, its surface perfectly geometric, adorned with 12 flat pentagonal faces, each one decorated with circular holes of varying sizes. This is the Roman Dodecahedron, one of history's most perplexing artifacts. Dozens of these intricate objects have been found scattered across Europe, from Britain to Hungary, yet not a single written record from the Roman Empire even mentions them. They're masterfully crafted with precise symmetry and smooth edges, suggesting they weren't just trinkets, but what were they? For theories abound, each more fascinating than the last. Some suggest they were tools for knitting or weaving, with the holes guiding thread into delicate patterns. Others argue they served as measuring devices, perhaps for gauging distances or calibrating water pipes. There's even a wild hypothesis that they were ancient astronomical instruments, used to calculate the optimal planting dates by aligning with celestial events. But here's the catch. None of these ideas fully explain why every dodecahedron discovered varies slightly in size, material, or hole placement. If they were standardized tools, why the inconsistencies? What's equally baffling is where they're found, often in military camps, settlements, and even buried alone as if deliberately hidden. Were they sacred objects, tokens of a secretive cult? Or perhaps they held a purpose so ordinary, so mundane to the Romans, that no one thought to write it down. The silence in historical texts is deafening. Even the great Roman engineers and scholars, famed for documenting everything from aqueducts to warfare, left us nothing but these silent bronze puzzles. The dodecahedron tantalizes because it defies easy answers. It's a reminder that even a civilization as meticulously recorded as Rome still holds mysteries, objects that slip through the cracks of history, leaving us to piece together their stories one curious whole at a time. The mystery of the Roman dodecahedron only deepens when you examine where these objects keep turning up. Many have been discovered alongside coin hoards, carefully stashed treasures buried during times of conflict or upheaval. This recurring pairing has fueled speculation that they held significant value, not just as tools but perhaps as objects of wealth or even spiritual importance. Why would someone bury one of these enigmatic items with their life savings unless it meant something far beyond the ordinary? Recent experiments have tried to crack the dodecahedron's code by testing its potential as a practical tool. One team theorized it could have been used for land surveying, with the varying hole sizes helping to calculate distances or angles. They recreated a replica and attempted to use it for measuring fields, but the results were inconclusive. The holes don't align neatly with any known Roman measurement system, leaving researchers just as puzzled as before. Another experiment explored whether it might have functioned as a rangefinder for military catapults, but again, the theory fell short. The dodecahedron's design simply doesn't match the precision needed for such tasks. Then there's the spiritual angle. Some scholars point to the object's geometric perfection, a shape revered in ancient cosmology as evidence it held religious significance. The 12 faces could symbolize celestial harmony or the zodiac, and its presence in burial sites or near temples suggests a ceremonial role. Yet without any inscriptions or depictions in Roman art, it's impossible to confirm. The dodecahedron's silence is its greatest tease. It refuses to fit neatly into any one box, whether practical, artistic, or divine. Perhaps the most intriguing clue lies in their imperfections. No two dodecahedrons are identical. Some are larger, some smaller, with holes that vary in size and spacing. If they were mass-produced tools, why the inconsistencies? This lack of standardization hints at a more personal purpose, like a craftsman's signature or a localized tradition lost to time. Every new discovery adds another layer to the mystery, proving that even in our age of advanced archaeology, some secrets of the past remain stubbornly out of reach. Buried beneath the waves for over 2,000 years, a lump of corroded bronze and wood sat hidden among the wreckage of an ancient Greek ship until divers stumbled upon it in the early 20th century. What they'd found wasn't just another artifact, it was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it rewrote our understanding of ancient technology. At first glance, it looked like a jumbled mass of gears, but beneath the decay lay a complex system of interlocking bronze cogs, meticulously engineered to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This wasn't just a tool, it was a mechanical computer centuries ahead of its time. The precision of the Antikythera Mechanism is staggering. Tiny gear teeth, some no thicker than a fingernail, meshed together to simulate celestial cycles with near-perfect accuracy. Turn the hand crank and the machine could predict solar eclipses, chart the positions of stars, and even account for the irregular orbit of the moon, a feat of engineering unmatched until the clockwork devices of the Renaissance over a millennium later. How did the ancient Greeks, without modern tools or mathematics, create something so sophisticated? The answer lies in fragments of text recovered from the mechanism's corroded surfaces, revealing a user's manual of sorts, etched with astronomical terms and instructions. When researchers first reconstructed its inner workings, the archaeological world was stunned. Here was proof that the ancient world harbored technological brilliance far beyond what historians had assumed. Before the Antikythera Mechanism, the idea of a geared computer in classical antiquity seemed unthinkable. Yet this device, likely built between 80 and 60 BC, demonstrates a mastery of mechanics and astronomy that rivals early modern science. Some scholars believe it may have been the work of Hipparchus, the famed astronomer, or perhaps a disciple of Archimedes, whose lost writings on mechanical devices hint at similarly groundbreaking inventions. But the mystery doesn't end with its function. Why was this marvel of engineering aboard a sinking ship? Was it en route to a wealthy patron or part of a scholar's treasured collection? And most hauntingly, how many more devices like it were lost to time? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a solitary survivor, a glimpse into a world where ancient innovators pushed boundaries we never knew existed. It's a humbling reminder that history's primitive past might have been far more brilliant than we ever imagined. Modern reconstructions of the Antikythera mechanism reveal just how revolutionary this ancient device truly was. Using high-resolution X-ray scans and 3D modeling, researchers have painstakingly recreated its intricate gearwork, uncovering layers of complexity that early observers couldn't have imagined. The machine didn't just track celestial movements, it could predict them with astonishing accuracy, accounting for subtle irregularities like the moon's elliptical orbit. One gear even modeled the slow wobble of the moon's path, a phenomenon known as the Saros cycle, which repeats every 18 years. This wasn't just a calculator, it was a miniature cosmos in bronze, a testament to the Greeks' deep understanding of the heavens. The question of its origins leads us to one of antiquity's greatest minds, Archimedes. Historical records mention a planetarium he built, described as a mechanical sphere that mirrored the motions of the stars and planets. Though none of his devices survive, the Antikythera mechanism's sophistication suggests it could be a descendant of his work, or perhaps even a direct creation, lost at sea while being transported to Rome. Cicero himself wrote of a device brought to Rome by Marcellus after Archimedes' death, a sphere that displayed celestial movements. Could this have been an earlier version of the Antikythera mechanism? The timing aligns, but without definitive proof, the connection remains one of history's tantalizing what-ifs. What's even more puzzling is why this technology seemingly vanished for over 1,000 years. After the mechanism's creation, the knowledge required to build such devices appears to have faded, with no surviving examples or records until medieval clockwork re-emerged in Europe. Some speculate that the fall of the Roman Empire and the loss of specialized workshops played a role, while others point to the secrecy surrounding advanced mechanical knowledge reserved for elite scholars. The Antikythera mechanism might have been a rare masterpiece, its techniques known only to a handful of craftsmen whose secrets died with them. Yet its existence shatters the myth of linear progress, proving that brilliance isn't confined to modern times. This single artifact forces us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of, and how much knowledge might still lie buried, waiting to be rediscovered. The Antikythera mechanism isn't just a relic, it's a challenge to our assumptions, a whisper from the past urging us to look deeper. Among the treasures unearthed from Viking burial sites and riverbeds across Europe, a handful of swords stand apart, not just for their lethal beauty, but for the sheer impossibility of their existence. These are the ULFBERHT swords, bearing that name etched into their blades in bold medieval letters. What makes them extraordinary isn't just their craftsmanship, but the metal itself. A steel so pure, so free of impurities, it rivals modern industrial-grade alloys. How did Viking blacksmiths, working over 1,000 years ago with primitive forges, achieve a level of metallurgy that shouldn't have been possible for centuries? The secret lies in the steel's composition. Most weapons of the Viking Age were forged from what's called bloomery iron, a crude metal riddled with slag and inconsistencies effective enough for axes and spearheads but prone to brittleness. The ULFBERHT blades, by contrast, were made of crucible steel, a material so refined it contained almost no imperfections. This high-carbon steel gave the swords a terrifying advantage. They were lighter, stronger, and more flexible than anything else on the battlefield. While an ordinary sword might shatter under force, an ULFBERHT could bend like a willow branch and spring back to true, its edge remaining razor-sharp through countless clashes. But here's the puzzle. Crucible steel wasn't just rare in medieval Europe, it was practically non-existent. The nearest known source was thousands of miles away, in the distant lands of Persia and Central Asia, where smiths had mastered the art of heating iron with carbon in sealed clay crucibles. Yet somehow, ULFBERHT blades appeared in Scandinavia as early as the 9th century, centuries before trade routes could plausibly explain their arrival. Were Viking traders venturing far deeper into the East than historians realized, or did they stumble upon a lost technique, a fleeting moment of metallurgical genius that vanished as suddenly as it appeared? The mystery deepens when you examine the sword's inscriptions. Not all ULFBERHTs are created equal. Some bear the name in precise, elegant lettering, while others show crude imitations with misspellings like ULFBERHT or ULFBERT. This suggests a dark truth: counterfeiting. In a world where reputation meant survival, lesser smiths may have slapped the famed name onto inferior blades, hoping to cash in on the legend. The genuine ULFBERHTs, though, are unmistakable. Their blades sing with a metallic clarity when struck, a ringing testament to the lost art of their creators. What happened to the makers of these peerless weapons? No workshops, no crucibles, no records of their methods survive. The ULFBERHT phenomenon lasted barely 2 centuries before fading into obscurity, leaving behind only a scattered handful of blades, and a question that still haunts metallurgists today. Were these swords the product of a single, secretive guild, their techniques guarded like state secrets, or did they represent a technological dead end, a brilliance too advanced for its time? One thing's certain: in an age of crude iron and brutal warfare, the ULFBERHT swords were something akin to magic, forged not just from steel, but from the lingering enigma of human ingenuity. Theories about the ULFBERHT sword's origins split historians into 2 fierce camps, one pointing east to distant trade routes, the other insisting the Vikings achieved the impossible in their own forges. The first camp argues these blades couldn't have been forged in Scandinavia at all. Crucible steel, with its high carbon content and near-total lack of impurities, matches the legendary Damascus steel of Persia and India, a material traded along the Silk Road. Viking merchants known to raid and trade as far as Constantinople might have bartered for raw ingots or even finished blades, bringing them home to be etched with the ULFBERHT name. This would explain why the swords appear abruptly in the archaeological record, a technology imported, not invented. But here's the twist: recent metallurgical analysis reveals tiny differences between ULFBERHT steel and genuine Damascus blades. The carbon structures vary, and some ULFBERHTs contain trace elements like phosphorus, uncommon in Eastern steel. This fuels the opposing theory that Viking smiths somehow cracked the code of high-quality steel production independently. Picture a blacksmith in a smoky workshop, experimenting with ore and charcoal ratios, accidentally discovering that sealing iron in a clay crucible at extreme temperatures could purge impurities. It's plausible Norse metallurgists were innovators, crafting pattern-welded swords with intricate designs long before the ULFBERHTs appeared. Maybe one genius among them pushed the limits further, unlocking a technique too complex to sustain. The real enigma isn't just how they made these swords, it's why the knowledge vanished. Wars, plagues, or the death of a master smith without apprentices could have severed the chain of tradition. Another possibility: the raw materials ran out. High-quality iron ore deposits in Scandinavia were scarce, and the labor-intensive process may have become impractical as trade routes shifted. By the time European metallurgy rediscovered crucible steel in the Renaissance, the ULFBERHTs were already relics, their secrets buried with the few who knew them. What lingers is the unsettling idea that technological progress isn't a straight line. The ULFBERHT swords are a flare in the darkness, proof that brilliance can flicker and fade, leaving behind only whispers in steel. They challenge our arrogance, the assumption that ancient peoples couldn't surpass their era's limits. Maybe they did, and we just lost the receipts. In a quiet corner of the Iraq Museum in Baghdad sits a cluster of unassuming clay jars, each about the size of a fist, sealed with asphalt and pierced through the center by an iron rod. Found in the ruins of a 2,000-year-old Parthian village, these artifacts look like nothing more than ancient storage vessels until you notice the copper cylinder nestled inside, separated from the iron by a delicate layer of insulation. Fill one with vinegar or grape juice and something remarkable happens. It generates a small but measurable electric current. This is the Baghdad Battery, a discovery that sparked fiery debates among archaeologists for decades. Were these really the world's first batteries, predating modern electrochemistry by millennia, or do they hide a far simpler secret? The case for electricity is shockingly compelling. Replicas of the jars, filled with acidic liquids like vinegar, produce around 1 volt of power, not enough to light a bulb, but sufficient for subtle effects. Ancient artisans could have used them for electroplating, applying thin layers of gold or silver to jewelry or religious artifacts. There's precedent for this. Gilded objects from Mesopotamia show traces of techniques that don't quite match traditional fire gilding. Could a primitive battery have been the missing link? Even more intriguing are records from the same era describing medical treatments involving electric fish. If ancient healers understood the tingling power of shocks, perhaps they harnessed it in other ways. But skeptics counter with a glaring absence. No wires, no connected devices, no clear evidence these jars were ever used for electrical purposes. The asphalt seals, they argue, suggest storage, perhaps for sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as corrosion-resistant linings. Others propose the jars held mystical herbs, their metals reacting with liquids to produce fumes for divination or rituals. Without a single depiction or written account referencing their use as batteries, the theory rests on circumstantial clues. Yet the mystery lingers because of what these objects represent, a tantalizing what if. If they were batteries, they hint at a fleeting grasp of principles that wouldn't be rediscovered until Volta's experiments in the 18th century. If not, they're a reminder of how easily modern minds project their own frameworks onto the past. The truth might lie somewhere in between, an accidental discovery, a tool repurposed over time, or even a technology abandoned because its utility wasn't fully understood. The Baghdad Battery refuses to surrender its secrets, leaving us to wonder how many other ancient innovations we've overlooked or misinterpreted. What's undeniable is the ingenuity behind these jars. Whether they held electricity, incense, or something entirely unexpected, their design reveals a sophistication that defies the era's supposed technological limits. They challenge us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient knowledge and to acknowledge that some discoveries, like the spark of a battery, might flicker only briefly before fading into history's shadows. Modern attempts to replicate the Baghdad Battery have yielded fascinating results, and just as many unresolved questions. When filled with an acidic solution like vinegar or lemon juice, the clay jars produce a faint but measurable current, enough to generate a slight tingling sensation on the skin, or even electroplate a thin layer of silver onto a copper surface. In one experiment, a team of researchers connected several replicas in series, creating enough voltage to gild a small artifact, a process eerily similar to techniques seen in some ancient Mesopotamian jewelry. This practical application fuels the battery theory, suggesting these objects might have been early tools for metallurgy or decorative crafts. Yet critics quickly point out the gaps in this electrifying narrative. No electroplated objects from the period have been definitively linked to these jars, and no wires or conductive connectors have ever been found nearby. Even more damning, the asphalt seal, a key component of the battery design, would have prevented easy access to the liquid inside, hardly practical for a tool meant to be used repeatedly. This has led alternative theories to gain traction. Some scholars argue the jars were sacred vessels, their metals and acids reacting to produce fumes for ritual inhalation, akin to the Oracle of Delphi's hallucinogenic vapors. Others propose they stored precious scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as preservatives against humidity and pests. The debate hinges on a deeper question: absence of evidence versus evidence of absence. Just because we haven't found wires or electroplated objects tied directly to these jars doesn't mean they didn't exist. Organic materials like wood or reed fibers, which could have served as connectors, would have decayed over millennia. But without explicit references in texts or art, the battery theory remains speculative. What's undeniable is the ingenuity of the design. Whether intended for electricity, storage, or ceremony, these jars showcase a sophistication that challenges our assumptions about ancient technological curiosity. Perhaps the most compelling clue lies in their uniqueness. Only a handful of these vessels have ever been found concentrated in a specific time and place. If they were commonplace tools, where are the rest? Their scarcity suggests they served a niche purpose, one perhaps so obvious to their creators that no one thought to document it. The Baghdad Battery, like so many enigmatic artifacts, lingers at the crossroads of history and mystery, refusing to confirm or deny our modern interpretations. It's a humbling reminder that the past often withholds its secrets, leaving us to piece together fragments, and sometimes the most electrifying theories are the ones that never quite connect. Dotted across the rolling landscapes of Scotland, buried in the earth for over 5,000 years, lie hundreds of meticulously carved stone spheres, each one a geometric marvel from the Neolithic era. These palm-sized artifacts, some no larger than a tennis ball, are covered in a series of uniform knobs, their surfaces smooth to perfection. Archaeologists have unearthed them in fields, near ancient settlements, and even in burial sites, yet their purpose remains one of prehistory's most stubborn puzzles. Were they weapons, ceremonial objects, or perhaps tools of an entirely forgotten craft? The craftsmanship alone is enough to baffle modern minds. Each knob is spaced with near mathematical precision, their symmetry echoing the patterns found in nature, like the seeds of a sunflower or the scales of a pine cone. Some spheres feature as few as 3 knobs, while others boast over 100, their surfaces transformed into intricate tactile landscapes. The consistency in their design suggests they weren't mere whims of individual artisans, but objects with a standardized purpose, something deeply embedded in Neolithic culture. But what could that purpose have been? One leading theory casts them as tools of trade, primitive weights or measures, their knobs serving as counting aids for bartering goods like grain or livestock. Imagine a Neolithic merchant rolling a 6-knobbed sphere across a palm, each protrusion representing a unit of exchange. Yet this practical explanation falters when you consider the sheer variety in knob counts. If they were measuring devices, why no two are exactly alike? Others propose they were weapons, slung from cords as deadly bowlers or thrown like Stone Age grenades. But their delicate symmetry and lack of impact damage make this seem unlikely. Would anyone risk shattering such painstakingly crafted objects in combat? Then there's the ritual angle. Many of these spheres have been found near burial sites or ceremonial stone circles, hinting at a spiritual role. Their knobs could symbolize stars, ancestral spirits, or even pathways between worlds, 3-dimensional maps of a cosmology lost to time. Some researchers point to their tactile nature, suggesting they might have been used in meditation or divination, rolled in the hands to induce trance-like states. Without written records, we're left grasping at shadows, trying to reconstruct meaning from silent stone. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in their distribution. These spheres cluster in northeastern Scotland, with few found elsewhere in the British Isles. This regional concentration hints at a cultural fingerprint, a tradition unique to a specific group of people. Were they the signatures of a particular clan or talismans tied to the land itself? The stones refuse to tell, their secrets locked in granite and time. What's certain is that they embody the paradox of the Neolithic mind, capable of both brute survival and breathtaking artistry, leaving behind objects that are as much enigmas as they are masterpieces. Standing before one of these spheres in a museum, you can't help but run your fingers along its knobs, tracing the same grooves that some ancient hand once did. They're more than artifacts, they're conversations across millennia, whispering questions we're still straining to hear. In their perfect symmetry, we catch a glimpse of a people who saw the world differently, not just as a place to endure, but as a puzzle to be shaped, understood, and perhaps even revered. The Scottish stone balls aren't alone in their mystery. Across the globe, from the valleys of Costa Rica to the islands of Polynesia, ancient cultures crafted eerily similar spherical artifacts, each one a whisper of shared human fascination with shape and symmetry. Take Costa Rica's massive stone spheres, some weighing over 15 tons, precision carved by the Decode people over 1,000 years ago. Like their Scottish counterparts, their purpose remains debated. Were they astronomical markers, status symbols, or sacred objects aligning with celestial events? The parallels are uncanny. Both cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, invested immense labor into shaping stone into perfect orbs, suggesting something universal about the human urge to create order from chaos. Dig deeper and the symbolism becomes even more intriguing. Many ancient societies associated spheres with cosmic harmony. Think of the Greek orrery or Chinese armillary spheres which mapped the heavens. In prehistoric Europe, circular motifs dominate megalithic art, from spiral carvings at Newgrange to the concentric rings of Stonehenge. Could the Scottish stone balls be part of this broader tradition? Their knobs might represent celestial bodies, with the entire object serving as a tactile model of the night sky. Or consider their potential as symbols of unity. In many indigenous cultures, the circle represents cycles, life, seasons, the eternal return. A stone ball, flawless and unbroken, could have embodied these ideas, held during rituals or passed between generations as a tangible link to the unseen. Even the act of carving these spheres might have held spiritual weight. Neolithic tools were rudimentary. Shaping granite or basalt into perfect symmetry would have required patience, skill, and likely a reverence for the material itself. Some researchers suggest the process was as important as the product, a meditative act transforming raw stone into a sacred object. Similar traditions appear in other cultures. The Inuit carved ceremonial labyrinths, the Maori-shaped high tiki pendants, all demanding countless hours of labor for objects whose true significance transcended utility. Yet the Scottish spheres stand apart in one key way: their isolation. While Costa Rica's spheres cluster near settlements and plazas, Scotland's are often found alone, buried or placed in secluded landscapes. This hints at a more intimate role, perhaps personal talismans or clan identifiers, their meanings known only to those who held them. Without written records, we're left tracing connections through silence, relying on the stones themselves to tell their stories. What's undeniable is their power to captivate, bridging gaps between cultures and epochs with nothing more than carved knobs and the weight of time. Holding one today, you're left with more questions than answers. Why did so many ancient peoples with no contact gravitate toward the same form? Was it practicality, spirituality, or something deeper? An instinctual pull toward the shape that defines our planet, our eyes, even the atoms we're made of. The stone balls resist easy explanation, and maybe that's their lesson. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only pondered. They remind us that the past isn't a puzzle to complete but a conversation to join, one rounded edge at a time. Imagine a world without seismographs, where earthquakes struck without warning, leaving devastation in their wake. Now picture an ornate bronze vessel, adorned with 8 sinuous dragons, each clutching a metal ball in its jaws, poised above 8 bronze toads with gaping mouths. This was Zhang Heng's seismoscope, a device crafted in ancient China around 132 CE. An invention so advanced, it supposedly detected earthquakes hundreds of miles away, long before the ground began to tremble. How could a 2,000-year-old instrument accomplish what modern science only perfected centuries later? The design alone is a masterpiece of artistry and engineering. Standing over 6 feet tall, the vessel's 8 dragons represented the cardinal and intercardinal directions, while the toads below waited to catch the balls they'd drop. According to historical records, when an earthquake struck even far beyond the horizon, one dragon would release its ball into the corresponding toad's mouth, pinpointing the quake's origin. In one famous account from 138 CE, the device triggered for a quake to the west, though no shaking was felt locally. Days later, messengers arrived reporting devastation hundreds of miles away, exactly in the direction the seismoscope had indicated. But here's where the mystery deepens. No original seismoscope survives, and its inner workings are lost to time. Reconstructions and theories abound. Some suggest the dragons housed pendulums that swayed with distant tremors, knocking the balls loose. Others propose the vessel contained a delicately balanced central column that tipped toward seismic waves, triggering the release. The most compelling hypothesis involves an inverted pendulum hidden inside a weighted rod that would stay still as the Earth moved around it, activating a lever to open the dragon's jaw. Yet without Zhang Heng's original writings or a surviving artifact, these ideas remain educated guesses. What's undeniable is the seismoscope's sophistication. Ancient Chinese scholars documented earthquakes meticulously, and Zhang Heng's device wasn't just a curiosity, it was a tool for empire management, helping dispatch aid to stricken regions swiftly. Its existence hints at a profound understanding of Earth science long before the West embraced such ideas. Modern seismographs rely on electronic sensors, but the basic principle, detecting ground motion, remotely echoes Zhang Heng's innovation. The real enigma isn't just how it worked, but why the knowledge vanished. After the Han Dynasty, the seismoscope faded from records, its technology seemingly forgotten. Was it too complex to replicate without master craftsmen? Did later scholars dismiss it as superstition? Whatever the case, the seismoscope stands as a testament to a fleeting moment of brilliance, a reminder that ancient ingenuity sometimes flickered brighter than we dare to believe. Holding a replica today, you're struck by its eerie elegance, a machine that bridged art and science, myth and reality. It challenges our assumptions about the past, proving that even in antiquity, human curiosity could transcend the limits of its time. The dragons and toads may seem whimsical, but their message is profound. Sometimes the greatest discoveries wear the guise of legend. Modern attempts to reconstruct Zhang Heng's seismoscope have been equal parts fascination and frustration. Engineers and historians have pored over scant historical descriptions, trying to reverse engineer a device that vanished centuries ago. One of the most promising recreations, built by a team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, used an inverted pendulum mechanism, a weighted rod suspended inside the bronze vessel. When simulated seismic waves shook the model, the pendulum swayed, triggering a lever that released a ball from the corresponding dragon's mouth. The results were startlingly accurate, detecting simulated quakes from specific directions just as the ancient texts claimed. Yet even this meticulous replica leaves gaps. Without knowing the exact materials or internal configuration of the original, every reconstruction is an educated guess, blending archaeology with imagination. Skeptics argue that the seismoscope's legendary precision might be exaggerated by time and myth. Some propose it was more a ceremonial display than a functional tool, its dragons and toads symbolic rather than scientific. After all, no other ancient culture developed anything remotely similar until the 19th century. But defenders counter with the sheer specificity of historical accounts, like the documented quake in 138 CE, where the device pointed west days before messengers arrived with news of destruction. Coincidence seems unlikely. The seismoscope clearly responded to something. The real debate isn't whether it worked, but how reliably. Could it distinguish between distant tremors and local disturbances? Did it ever produce false positives? Without an intact original, we're left weighing anecdotes against the silence of lost evidence. The most intriguing twist comes from materials science. Analysis of Han Dynasty metallurgy reveals that bronze alloys from this period had unique acoustic properties, some even resonating at frequencies similar to seismic waves. Could the vessel itself have acted as a sort of tuning fork, vibrating imperceptibly to trigger the dragons? It's a tantalizing theory, suggesting Zhang Heng exploited principles of physics not formally understood for another 1,000 years. Yet this too raises questions. If the knowledge was so advanced, why didn't it spread? Why no surviving sketches or schematics? The seismoscope's isolation in history makes it either a fleeting stroke of genius or a relic of a broader tradition we've yet to uncover. What's undeniable is the device's legacy. Modern seismographs, though electronic, still rely on directional sensors to pinpoint earthquake epicenters, an eerie parallel to those 8 bronze dragons. The seismoscope challenges our assumptions about technological progress, proving that innovation isn't always linear. Sometimes it's a spark in the dark, brilliant but brief, leaving future generations to wonder how something so advanced could be forgotten, and what else might still lie buried, waiting to be rediscovered. Tucked between the pages of the most unreadable book in history lies a series of illustrations so baffling they've eluded explanation for centuries. The Voynich manuscript, that infamous cipher-covered tome from the 15th century, doesn't just contain cryptic text, it's filled with bizarre, meticulously drawn tools that look like nothing else from the medieval world. Some resemble twisted pipes snaking through vats of liquid, others suggest intricate devices for crushing or distilling plants, and a few appear to be hybrid contraptions, part medical instrument, part alchemical nightmare. These aren't the familiar tools of blacksmiths or apothecaries. They're surreal, almost otherworldly, as if the artist was sketching objects from a dream or another dimension. One of the most perplexing illustrations shows a cluster of interconnected glass vessels, their sinuous tubes winding like the roots of an alien plant. At first glance, they resemble distillation equipment, similar to what medieval alchemists used to purify liquids. But the design is all wrong, the angles too sharp, the proportions skewed. Another page depicts a handheld device with rotating blades and a funnel, labeled, if the indecipherable script can be believed, with what might be instructions for processing herbs. Yet there's no historical precedent for such a tool in actual herbals or medical texts of the era. It's as if the manuscript's creator imagined technology that didn't exist or wasn't meant to. Theories about these tools split scholars into warring camps. Some argue they're fictional, part of an elaborate hoax or allegorical text meant to symbolize spiritual transformation rather than practical use. The pipes and vessels could represent the human body's humors, their twisting forms mirroring the flow of energy in esoteric traditions. Others insist they're real, albeit encrypted, a coded record of advanced alchemical practices or proto-scientific experiments too dangerous or heretical to describe openly. A handful of daring researchers have even attempted to reconstruct the devices with mixed results. One team built a version of the plant press illustration, only to find it worked no better than a simple mortar and pestle, leaving them wondering if the design was deliberately flawed to hide its true purpose. Then there's the chilling possibility that these tools weren't meant for our world at all. The manuscript's so-called biological section features plants that don't match any known species, alongside nude figures wading through impossible plumbing systems. Could the tools be part of an elaborate fantasy, a parallel universe's science, or perhaps they're satirical, mocking the convoluted gadgets of medieval quacks and charlatans? Without the key to the manuscript's language, every interpretation is a shot in the dark. What's undeniable is the craftsmanship behind these drawings. Whoever penned the Voynich manuscript didn't doodle idly. They rendered each tool with precision, shading pipes to suggest dimensionality and etching gears with teeth that, in theory, could mesh. This attention to detail makes their uselessness all the more confounding. Were they blueprints for devices that couldn't be built with period technology, or were they never meant to be built at all, serving instead as visual metaphors in a text we're still struggling to read? The Voynich's tools dangle just out of reach, taunting us with the possibility of knowledge we can see but not comprehend. Holding a facsimile of the manuscript today, you can't help but trace those strange illustrations with your fingertip, feeling the weight of their mystery. They're more than just odd drawings, they're a silent challenge from the past, daring us to decipher not just their form but their function. In a world where we've mapped genomes and split atoms, these archaic diagrams remain stubbornly opaque, reminding us that some secrets refuse to yield, no matter how hard we pry. The Voynich manuscript's tools aren't the only mystery. They're tangled in the web of its unreadable script, a language that has defied codebreakers for centuries. Unlike medieval ciphers, which eventually crumble under modern cryptanalysis, the Voynich's text follows eerie, consistent patterns that suggest it's more than gibberish, yet nothing like any known tongue. Words repeat in rhythmic sequences, characters flow with the regularity of grammar, and certain symbols cluster in ways that hint at meaning, yet no one has cracked it. Not wartime codebreakers, not AI, not even the brightest linguists. Why does this script, wedged between illustrations of impossible tools and alien plants, resist every attempt at decipherment? One theory is that it's a sophisticated cipher, a deliberate obfuscation meant to shield forbidden knowledge. Medieval alchemists often wrote in riddles to protect their secrets, encoding recipes for potions or metallurgy in metaphors. But the Voynich doesn't behave like typical ciphers. It lacks the telltale repetitions or substitutions seen in encoded texts of the era. Another possibility is that it's a constructed language, an artificial script invented for a specific purpose. The way characters group into words resembles linguistic structures, but without a Rosetta Stone-like key. It's like trying to read a book with no alphabet. Then there's the radical idea that it's glossolalia, a stream of unconscious writing, perhaps channeled during a trance. Some pages feature looping, almost musical strings of text that mirror the cadence of spoken nonsense, and the tools might be visual representations of those ramblings. But this doesn't explain the manuscript's meticulous organization. Herbs grouped by type, astrological diagrams with labeled phases, even a section that seems to depict microscopic cellular structures centuries before microscopes existed. The tools drawn alongside the text only deepen the puzzle. If they're functional, why no parallels in other manuscripts? If symbolic, what system links their forms to the script? One startling clue comes from the way certain labels cluster near specific devices, as if explaining their use. A series of repeating glyphs, for instance, always appears near the twisting glass tubes, suggesting instructions or warnings. Modern algorithms have detected faint statistical patterns in these groupings, but without context, they're ghosts of meaning. What's most haunting is the realization that the Voynich's author might not have intended it as a mystery at all. To them, this could have been straightforward: a gardener's manual, a doctor's notes, a mad inventor's sketches. The tools, with their unsettling precision, mock us with their silence. They're a reminder that not all secrets are meant to be uncovered, and that some doors, no matter how hard we knock, remain stubbornly closed. Standing before a high-resolution scan of the manuscript today, you feel the weight of its defiance. It's not just a code to crack, it's a mirror held up to our own limitations. After 600 years, the Voynich manuscript still whispers the same taunt: you don't know everything. And perhaps that's the real lesson, not about the past, but about the boundaries of our understanding. Some enigmas refuse to surrender, not because they can't, but because they won't. Deep beneath the shifting sands near Egypt's pyramids, archaeologists have unearthed slender rods of granite and diorite, each one hollowed with near-perfect cylindrical precision. These ancient drill cores, some over a foot long, bear spiral grooves so regular, so mechanically exact, they look like they were made by industrial machinery. Yet they date back 4,500 years to an era when copper tools were the height of technology. How could the builders of the pyramids have achieved such flawless symmetry in one of the hardest stones on Earth? And why does this mystery split experts into two fiercely opposed camps? On one side are those who insist these cores were carved with tools far beyond what historians admit the Egyptians possessed. The grooves, spaced with uncanny uniformity, suggest a drill bit rotating at high speed, something impossible with hand-powered copper tools alone. Even more baffling is the core's taper. The deeper the drill went, the narrower the hole became, matching the behavior of modern diamond-tipped coring drills under pressure. Some researchers point to traces of abrasive slurry crushed quartz or emery that might have been used with a tubular drill to grind through granite like sandpaper. But skeptics counter that even with abrasives, achieving such precision without mechanical power would require superhuman patience and skill. Then there's the opposing theory that these cores aren't man-made at all. Geologists note that granite can fracture in spiral patterns under extreme natural forces like tectonic shifting or volcanic activity. Could these cores simply be freak geological formations, their regularity a trick of nature? The problem is location. They're found clustered near known quarry sites and pyramid construction zones, often alongside half-finished statues and tool marks. If nature made them, why here, in places teeming with human activity? The debate hinges on a single, tantalizing clue. A handful of these cores show internal striations, microscopic scratches that curve in one consistent direction. To some, this is the smoking gun of a rotating tool, yet no direct evidence of such advanced drills has ever been found in Egypt. No surviving machinery, no depictions in tomb art, no written records hinting at their existence. Were these tools deliberately destroyed to protect their secrets, or are we projecting modern assumptions onto ancient craftsmanship? What's undeniable is the skill behind these artifacts. Whether made by lost technology or natural chance, they stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that continues to defy our understanding. The pyramid builders left more than tombs, they left puzzles in stone, daring us to question what we think we know about the limits of human ingenuity. And perhaps that's the lesson. History's greatest mysteries aren't just gaps in our knowledge, but mirrors reflecting our own biases about the past. The controversy over Egypt's mysterious drill cores isn't just about ancient tools, it's a battleground between two radically different visions of history. On one side, mainstream archaeologists argue these artifacts are triumphs of primitive ingenuity, crafted with nothing more than copper chisels, sand abrasives, and relentless manpower. They point to experimental archaeology projects where researchers replicated similar grooves using wooden drills tipped with quartz sand, proving it's possible if painstakingly slow. A team from University College London once spent weeks grinding a granite block with a copper saw and abrasive slurry, producing striations eerily similar to those on the cores. Their conclusion: the Egyptians didn't need advanced technology, just time, patience, and an army of workers. But fringe researchers counter with unsettling questions. Why do some cores show feed rates the speed at which a drill penetrates stone consistent with modern machinery? One analysis estimated the theoretical drill would need to spin at over 500 revolutions per minute while applying half a ton of downward pressure, a combination impossible with hand cranking. Even more perplexing are core samples where the spiral grooves deepen at mathematically regular intervals, suggesting a mechanical feed system adjusting for wear. These anomalies fuel theories of lost civilizations, perhaps an advanced culture predating dynastic Egypt, whose technology was later mimicked without understanding. Ancient astronaut enthusiasts take it further, proposing these tools as evidence of extraterrestrial intervention, though mainstream science dismisses such claims as speculative at best. Geologists offer a middle path. Certain granite formations naturally fracture along helical planes when subjected to torsional stress, like earthquakes or volcanic activity. In 2014, a team from the University of Auckland demonstrated how seismic waves could twist bedrock, creating spiral patterns that resemble drill marks. But critics note these natural formations lack the uniformity of the Egyptian cores. Their grooves meander unpredictably, while the ancient samples show machine-like precision. And why would natural forces target quarries and construction sites so selectively? The debate reveals more about us than the ancients. For mainstream scholars, accepting these cores as handmade affirms human resilience, proof that Neolithic craftsmen achieved the impossible with simple tools. For alternative theorists, they're clues to a grander narrative, one where history's timeline hides forgotten epochs of innovation. Both sides agree on one thing: these silent stone cylinders defy easy explanation. Whether products of genius, nature, or something stranger, they remind us that the past never stops surprising, and that some riddles resist even the sharpest drills of modern inquiry. Scattered across the arid plains of southern Peru, near the sprawling Nazca lines, archaeologists have uncovered clusters of unassuming wooden sticks, some barely longer than a forearm, others shaped into crude spade-like blades. At first glance, they look like the remnants of an ancient farmer's toolkit, too rudimentary to warrant a second thought. But these fragile artifacts might hold the key to one of history's greatest artistic mysteries. How did a civilization without wheels, without metal tools, etch colossal geometric shapes and intricate animal figures into the desert floor, designs so vast they can only be fully seen from the sky? The answer lies in the simplicity of these wooden tools. Researchers believe the Nazca people used them like brooms, sweeping aside the dark, iron-rich topsoil to reveal the lighter, colored earth beneath a natural contrast that created the line's striking visibility. Experiments with replicas show that a team of workers could clear a path several feet wide in just hours, moving in coordinated lines like human plows. The tool's design is ingeniously practical. The curved blades scoop away loose gravel, while the flat edges smooth the exposed surface, ensuring crisp, clean edges. What's astonishing isn't the technology, but the scale of its application. The Nazca didn't just carve a few lines, they transformed over 500 square kilometers of desert into a canvas, all with nothing but wooden sticks and meticulous planning. But how did they achieve such precision without aerial vision? One theory suggests they used a system of ropes and stakes to map out designs from smaller-scale models, scaling them up with geometric precision. Another posits that the Nazca might have built makeshift observation towers or followed natural vantage points to guide their work. The wooden spades themselves offer subtle clues. Some show where patterns indicating repetitive, directional strokes, as if teams worked in assembly line fashion, each person responsible for a single section. This wasn't haphazard scratching, it was a coordinated, almost industrial effort, a communal project that blurred the line between art and engineering. Yet the mystery deepens when you consider the line's purpose. Were they ritual pathways, astronomical calendars, or offerings to deities believed to dwell in the skies? The wooden tools, though mundane, hint at a spiritual dimension. Many were found near ceremonial sites, some even buried as offerings. Their very simplicity suggests a paradox, that the Nazca's greatest masterpieces weren't just created with basic tools, but perhaps because of them. In a world without complex machinery, the act of sweeping the earth by hand might have held sacred significance, turning labor into worship. Today, these fragile spades sit in museum cases, their splintered surfaces a stark contrast to the enduring lines they helped create. They're a reminder that humanity's grandest achievements often begin with the humblest materials, and that sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't about how something was made, but why. The Nazca lines endure as a testament to patience and vision, while their wooden tools whisper a quieter lesson. That greatness isn't always forged in steel, but in the collective will of hands working together under an endless desert sky. Yet for all their ingenuity, the Nazca tools raise an unsettling question. Could simple wooden sticks really be responsible for designs of such staggering precision? Take the famous hummingbird figure, its wings spanning over 90 feet with curves so smooth they seem drawn by a compass, or the spider, its legs perfectly proportioned down to the joints. These aren't rough sketches, but masterpieces of geometric harmony, their symmetry flawless even when scaled across hundreds of meters. Skeptics argue that no amount of rope and stake planning could achieve this without some form of aerial guidance. leading to wild theories ranging from hot air balloons to, yes, extraterrestrial assistance. But let's ground this in reality. Modern experiments reveal the limitations of these tools. When researchers tried replicating the lines using only Nazca-style sticks, they found that maintaining straightness over long distances required constant recalibration. A team from the University of Tokyo demonstrated how slight deviations in foot placement or uneven pressure could warp a line's trajectory over just a few dozen feet. Yet the actual Nazca lines stretch arrows straight for miles, deflecting less than a meter over entire kilometers. How did ancient people, working without lasers or theodolites, achieve such accuracy? One clue lies in the desert itself. The Nazca Plateau's surface is a unique geological sandwich, a dark layer of oxidized pebbles atop lighter, compacted soil. Once the top layer is removed, the contrast is permanent, resistant to erosion from wind and rare rains. This allowed for trial and error. Workers could adjust their paths incrementally, refining curves or angles until satisfied. The sticks weren't just tools, they were erasers, letting artists rework their colossal canvas until perfection emerged. Still, the scale boggles the mind. Some lines run parallel for kilometers with near-identical spacing, as if plotted by a giant's ruler. Others intersect at angles precise enough to suggest astronomical alignments. Could the Nazca have used natural landmarks, distant hilltops, or celestial events as sighting guides? Archaeologists have discovered stone cairns at key points along the lines, possibly serving as visual anchors for teams on the ground. It's a theory that bridges the gap between primitive tools and sophisticated results. Not alien technology, but human ingenuity amplified by the landscape itself. Perhaps the most humbling realization is that we've underestimated the power of collective effort. The Nazca didn't need advanced machinery because they had something far more potent: time, patience, and generations of shared knowledge. Those humble wooden spades weren't wielded in isolation, but by hundreds of hands moving in unison, guided by traditions we can only dimly reconstruct. The lines endure not despite their simple tools, but because of them, proof that precision isn't just a function of technology, but of purpose. Standing on the plateau today, watching shadows creep across a giant monkey's spiraled tail, you're left with a quiet awe. The real mystery isn't how they did it with sticks, but why they did it at all. And that's a question no tool, no matter how advanced, could ever answer for us. In the dense jungles of Central America, archaeologists have unearthed strange stone discs, their surfaces etched with intricate celestial patterns, spirals of stars, coiled serpents, and glyphs marking the passage of time. These are the Mayan zodiacal wheels, mysterious artifacts that blur the line between astronomy and mythology. Carved from solid limestone, each wheel is a labyrinth of symbols, some aligning with known Mayan constellations, others depicting figures lost to history. Some scholars believe they were portable calendars, tracking the movements of Venus or the sacred Tzolk'in cycle, but their true purpose remains one of Mesoamerica's most tantalizing riddles. Look closer and the wheels reveal layers of complexity. One excavated in the ruins of Capon features 26 distinct glyphs, each corresponding to a day in the Mayan ceremonial month. The outer ring shows a serpent swallowing its own tail, a symbol of eternity, while inner circles divide the cosmos into quadrants, mirroring the Mayan view of a universe balanced between four sacred directions. Yet other wheels defy easy categorization. A specimen from Palenque bears no numerical glyphs at all, instead showcasing a procession of deities riding celestial beasts. Was this a religious object, a teaching tool, or something else entirely? The debate hinges on conflicting interpretations of Mayan cosmology. Some researchers argue the wheels were computational devices, their rotating rings acting as gears in a stone calculator. In 2012, a team from the University of Texas recreated a wheel with movable parts, demonstrating how aligning certain glyphs could predict solar eclipses within a 5-year window. But critics point out that most recovered wheels are fixed, their carvings static. If they were calculators, where are the adjustable components? Others propose they were ritual compasses, used by priests to orient temples or mark auspicious dates for planting and warfare. Then there's the enigma of their dispersal. These wheels aren't confined to grand temples. They've been found in humble village sites, buried with commoners, even repurposed as grinding stones. This suggests they held multiple meanings across different social strata. A noble's wheel might chart royal ancestry through star alignments, while a farmer's could track rainy seasons. Their variability hints at a shared celestial language, adaptable yet universally understood. What's most striking is their persistence. Even after the Spanish conquest, fragments of these wheels reappear in colonial-era Mayan texts, their symbols hybridized with Christian imagery. A wheel discovered in a Guatemalan church basement merges the cross with the Mayan world tree, its zodiacal beasts recast as saints. This wasn't just survival, it was resistance, a silent assertion of cosmic order in the face of cultural erasure. Holding one today, you're struck by their weight, not just of stone but of legacy. These wheels spun through centuries, their meanings shifting like the stars they charted. Were they tools, talismans, or both? The answer might lie in accepting that the Maya saw no divide between science and spirit. For them, time wasn't counted, it was conjured, and these stones were the portals. The Mayan zodiacal wheels didn't spin in isolation. They were part of a vast celestial network, their carvings mirroring the precise alignments of pyramids and temples across Mesoamerica. At Capon's famed observatory, archaeologists found a wheel fragment embedded in the wall, its glyphs positioned to catch the setting sun on the winter solstice. When the light struck a specific spiral, it illuminated a series of dots counting down to the next Venus transit. This wasn't just art, it was interstellar mathematics carved in stone, a fusion of architecture and astronomy that turned entire cities into cosmic clocks. What makes these wheels revolutionary is their adaptability. Unlike static star charts, some recovered near El Mirador show adjustable inner rings, sliding stone plates that could be shifted to track planetary movements over decades. One particularly intricate disk from Uxacton contains 7 concentric circles, each representing a different celestial body. When aligned correctly during the equinox, the shadows cast by its central gnomon pinpointed the positions of Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter with startling accuracy. Modern astronomers have tested replicas against historical records of Mayan sky observations. In 80% of cases, the wheels predicted planetary conjunctions within 3 days. Yet their true genius lies in their imperfections. The Maya understood that celestial cycles weren't perfectly tidy. Venus' orbit, for example, shifts by 8 days every 5 centuries. Some wheels account for these irregularities through corrective glyphs, tiny markings that instruct priests to adjust calculations seasonally. The Palinque wheel even encodes a 19-year lunar cycle within its outer ring, compensating for the mismatch between solar and lunar years, a sophistication European calendars wouldn't achieve until the Gregorian reform centuries later. The most haunting discovery came in 2018, when laser scans of Tikal's North Acropolis revealed subterranean chambers lined with wheel fragments. Arranged in a semicircle, their combined glyphs formed a 3-dimensional model of the Milky Way as seen from that latitude 3,000 years ago. Here, the wheels transcended tools, they became portals, allowing shamans to travel the stars while remaining earthbound. Modern Maya elders still speak of these stones as sky routes, tethering the earthly and celestial realms. Standing before a reconstructed wheel in Mexico City's museum, you can almost hear the whisper of obsidian blades scraping limestone as ancient scribes updated their cosmic ledger. These weren't just calculators, they were living contracts between humanity and the heavens, proof that observation alone wasn't enough for the Maya. To truly master time, one had to carve it in stone and set it spinning. Buried in the ashes of a Minoan palace on the island of Crete, lies a clay disc no larger than a dinner plate, the Phaistos disc, stamped on both sides with a dizzying spiral of symbols that have defied translation for over a century. Some show unmistakable silhouettes of tools, axes, saws, even what might be a plow or a ship's oar. Others depict human figures, animals, and abstract shapes resembling nothing else in the ancient world. Arranged in groups like words, these symbols curl inward toward the disc's center, a silent language spinning endlessly into itself. Is this a sacred hymn, a merchant's ledger, or an elaborate forgery designed to fool modern scholars? The debate rages on, making the Phaistos disc one of archaeology's most polarizing puzzles. What's immediately striking is the disc's uniqueness. Unlike linear A or B, the scripts used by Minoans and Mycenaeans, these symbols weren't penned by hand, they were pressed into the clay with individual stamps, a technique unseen elsewhere in Bronze Age Europe. This suggests a level of sophistication bordering on movable type, predating Gutenberg's printing press by 3,000 years. Yet if stamping was commonplace, why haven't more examples surfaced? Only one intact disc exists, raising suspicions. Critics argue it's too perfect, too anomalous. The symbols show no weathering, no errors, as if crafted by someone imitating antiquity rather than living in it. Even the clay's composition offers no clues it's local to Crete, but that doesn't rule out a modern artisan mixing ancient materials. Proponents of authenticity point to the tools depicted as evidence of real-world utility. One recurring symbol shows a helmeted head beside a figure holding an adze, a woodworking tool still used in Crete today. Another resembles a double axe, a sacred Minoan motif found etched into palace walls. These aren't random doodles, they're snapshots of a lost culture's daily life. In 2014, linguists from Oxford identified statistical patterns in the symbol groupings consistent with natural language, suggesting the disc isn't just decorative. But without a bilingual key, a Rosetta Stone for this script, every translation remains speculative. One attempt deciphered it as a prayer to a mother goddess, another a list of royal tribute payments. The hoax theory gained traction when a similar disc, the Phaistos Disc II, surfaced in 2008, only to be exposed as a modern fake. Yet the original was unearthed in 1908 by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernia, who had no known motive for fraud. The excavation was well documented, with the disc found amidst genuine Minoan artifacts. Skeptics counter that Pernia might have sought fame, or that a local craftsman tricked him. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the disc represents a dead end, a script so obscure, so tied to a single time and place, that its meaning died with its makers. If it's genuine, it hints at a fleeting experiment in communication, a language stillborn in the cradle of civilization. Turn the disc in your hands, and those stamped symbols seem to pulse with urgency, as if shouting across millennia in a code we'll never crack. Whether artifact or artifice, the Phaistos disc endures as a taunt, a reminder that some ancient tools weren't made of metal or stone, but of symbols, and those can be the sharpest mysteries of all. The pristine condition of the Phaistos disc has always raised eyebrows, but the real storm began in 2008 when a near-identical clay disc surfaced in a private collection, Phaistos Disc II. Crafted with the same spiral of stamped symbols, it was hailed as a breakthrough. Until experts noticed the devil in the details. The symbols were too crisp, the clay too evenly fired, lacking the subtle imperfections of genuine antiquity. Under microscopic analysis, the forgery unraveled. Modern tool marks hid beneath the patina, and the clay contained traces of synthetic binders unknown to Bronze Age craftsmen. This wasn't just a fake, it was a meticulously engineered distraction, muddying the waters of an already murky mystery. For scholars, the counterfeit was a wake-up call. If a convincing replica could slip into the archaeological conversation so easily, how many other artifacts might be muddying the record? The incident cast doubt not just on new finds, but on the original disc itself. Skeptics pounced, arguing that if a 21st-century forger could mimic the disc so well, perhaps Luigi Pernia, the Italian archaeologist who unearthed the original in 1908, had been duped too. After all, the early 20th century was rife with elaborate hoaxes, from Piltdown Man to the Tiara of Saitaphones. Yet defenders of the disc's authenticity point to key differences. The genuine artifact was excavated under documented conditions, surrounded by verified Minoan pottery and seal stones. Its symbols show microscopic wear patterns consistent with accidental nicks and scrapes accumulated over millennia, not the deliberate, aging techniques used by forgers. Most tellingly, the original disc's symbols include subtle variations in depth and alignment, the natural inconsistencies of hand stamping, while modern copies often betray robotic uniformity. The forgeries have done more than sow doubt, they've overshadowed legitimate research. Every new attempt to decipher the disc's symbols must now contend with a chorus of skepticism, as if the mere existence of fakes taints the original by association. It's a cruel irony. The very uniqueness that makes the Phaistos disc fascinating also makes it a target for those who'd rather profit from mystery than solve it. Perhaps the greatest casualty of this shadow game is the loss of scholarly momentum. Decades that could have been spent untangling the disc's meaning have instead been wasted debunking imposters. Yet in this tug-of-war between truth and trickery, one thing remains clear. The original disc, whether ancient enigma or masterful hoax, has outlasted its mimics. Its symbols still spin their silent riddle, untouched by the noise of those who'd rewrite history for fame or fortune. In the end, the forgeries may crumble into dust, but the mystery, stubborn as clay, endures. Deep in the frozen reaches of the Arctic, where the northern lights ripple across the sky like spectral flames, shamans of the Inuit people once wielded a ceremonial drum unlike any other, the killout. Carved from the stretched stomach of a walrus or the hide of a caribou, its circular frame is adorned with cryptic symbols, spirals that mimic whirlpools, jagged lines echoing mountain peaks, and figures that seem to dance between human and animal forms. But it's not just the carvings that mystify, it's how the drum was used. Unlike rhythmic instruments meant solely for music, the killout was a bridge between worlds, its deep, resonant pulse said to summon spirits, heal the sick, and even guide hunters to unseen prey. What secrets lie hidden in its designs, and why have their meanings faded even among modern Inuit elders? The drum's construction alone is a marvel of adaptation. In a land where every resource is precious, the killout's materials were chosen for more than practicality. The walrus stomach, thin yet incredibly tough, produced a sound described as both thunderous and ghostly, a voice that could carry across the tundra, mimicking the otherworldly echoes of cracking ice or howling winds. Shamans would strike it with a carved whalebone beater, its blows alternating between gentle taps and frenzied rhythms, as if the drum itself was alive and breathing. Some accounts describe ceremonies where the drum's vibrations seemed to synchronize with the shaman's chants, creating an almost hypnotic effect on listeners. Were these patterns a form of sonic medicine, manipulating perception to induce trances, or did they hold a deeper, forgotten language? Then there's the enigma of its symbols. Unlike the predictable motifs of hunting scenes or clan totems found on other Inuit artifacts, the killout's carvings defy easy interpretation. One drum recovered from Nunavut shows a series of concentric circles connected by wavy lines, a map of unseen spirit trails perhaps, or a representation of the layered cosmos Inuit cosmology describes. Another, now housed in a museum in Greenland, bears a sequence of zigzags that align perfectly with the angles of the midnight sun during summer solstice. Were these sacred calendars navigational aids, or something more personal, a shaman's private dialogue with the unseen? Modern anthropologists clash over the drum's duality. Some argue its primary function was psychological, a tool to unify communities during long, isolating winters. its rituals reinforcing social bonds. Others point to its apparent predictive power. Inuit oral histories tell of shamans who, after hours of drumming, would suddenly stop and point to the horizon, guiding hunters to seal breathing holes invisible under the ice. Could the drum's vibrations have acted as a sort of early sonar, its frequencies detecting hollow spaces beneath the snow? Experiments with replicas suggest low-frequency sound waves can indeed penetrate ice, but without first-hand accounts from the shamans who wielded them, the theory remains speculative. The Kilaut's decline adds another layer of melancholy to its mystery. With the arrival of Christian missionaries in the 19th century, many drums were destroyed or abandoned, their rituals branded as pagan heresy. Today, efforts to revive the tradition are met with frustration. While the physical craft of drum making has been preserved, the meanings behind specific symbols and rhythms have slipped into ambiguity. Contemporary Inuit artists often recreate the carvings based on museum specimens, but they admit the original intent is lost. Holding a Kilaut today, you're struck by its weight, not of the wood or hide, but of the silence where there was once sound. It's a reminder that some tools weren't just instruments, but vessels for knowledge too vast, too fluid to be fully recorded. The drum's pulse may have faded, but its questions linger, beating softly at the edges of understanding. What wisdom vanished when the last true shaman laid down his beater, and in the quiet of the Arctic night, if you listen closely, does the wind still carry echoes of the answers? Among the Inuit, whispers persist of shamans who could hear voices in the drum's echo, messages from ancestors carried on the wind. One elder's account describes a ritual where the Kilaut's beats grew slower and deeper as the shaman's chants reached a crescendo, then suddenly stopped. In that silence, the shaman would tilt his head as if listening, before announcing the direction of migrating caribou or the location of ice cracks invisible to the eye. These weren't guesses. Hunters who followed these directions often returned with full sleds, their paths uncannily precise. Was the drum a spiritual telephone, or did the shamans possess an intimate understanding of natural acoustics lost to time? The drum's connection to the land is undeniable. Spiral carvings on some Kilauts mirror the swirling patterns of snowdrifts, while zigzagging lines trace the jagged outlines of distant glaciers, almost like a tactile map. Researchers at the University of Alaska discovered that certain symbols correspond to sound frequencies capable of traveling vast distances across ice. When replicated in field tests, these tones produced vibrations detectable by seismic sensors over a mile away. Could generations of shamans have honed an auditory navigation system, using the drum's resonance to read the landscape? It's a theory supported by the drum's construction. Walrus stomach hide, when stretched taut, emits low-frequency waves that penetrate ice more effectively than higher pitches, echoing back when they encounter hollows or open water beneath. Yet oral traditions complicate this practical explanation. Stories passed down in Nunavut speak of the Kilaut as a living entity, its voice intertwined with the aurora borealis. During the long polar night, some shamans claimed the drum's beats would synchronize with the shimmering lights, pulling the dancers' shadows into elongated, spectral shapes. In one chilling account, a shaman's daughter recalled her father's warning never to drum near certain ice caves. The echoes, he said, would awaken those who sleep beneath. Whether metaphorical or literal, these tales hint at a cosmology where sound wasn't just a tool, but a force capable of bending reality itself. Modern attempts to revive the Kilaut's rituals often stumble over these blurred lines between science and spirit. A younger generation of Inuit artists can replicate the carvings and rhythms, but the deeper knowledge how to interpret the drum's responses, when to alter the tempo, to ask a new question, remains fragmentary. What survives is the certainty that these drums were more than instruments. They were guides, translators, and perhaps even guardians of a relationship with the Arctic that modern technology has yet to replicate. When the last traditional shaman passed, an elder lamented, "The ice speaks less now." The Kilaut's true power may have lain not in the answers it gave, but in the questions it taught people to hear. Buried in the ruins of the ancient Indus Valley cities, archaeologists have unearthed hundreds of small, square stones, each one carved with exquisite precision and stamped with a creature unlike anything in the natural world. These are the famous unicorn seals, palm-sized soapstone artifacts etched with a bull-like animal bearing a single, slender horn. But these aren't mere decorations, they're tools of bureaucracy, their surfaces covered in cryptic symbols and intricate markings that hint at a sophisticated system of trade and control. Why did a civilization that left no grand temples or royal tombs invest such artistry into these enigmatic objects, and what secrets do their symbols hold? At first glance, the unicorn motif seems fanciful, almost whimsical, but its consistency across thousands of seals suggests something far more deliberate. Unlike the chaotic menagerie of creatures in Mesopotamian or Egyptian art, the Indus unicorn appears rigidly standardized with the same arched neck, stylized mane, and that mysterious horn curving elegantly from its forehead. Some historians argue it's not a unicorn at all, but a highly stylized ox or antelope, its horn possibly representing a ceremonial muzzle or harness. Others see echoes of mythological beasts from later Indian traditions, like the Akashringa, a one-horned creature symbolizing spiritual purity. What's undeniable is its ubiquity. Over 60% of recovered seals feature this single motif, as if it served as a universal emblem of authority or identity in a civilization that, bafflingly, left no written records beyond these tiny inscriptions. The seal's practical use is clearer. Found in workshops, docks, and storage rooms, they were likely pressed into clay or wax to mark goods, like ancient barcodes linking products to merchants or officials. The back of each seal bears a perforated knob, suggesting they were worn as pendants or strung on cords, portable signatures for a society that thrived on commerce. What's astonishing is their uniformity. Despite being crafted over centuries and across vast distances from modern-day Pakistan to India, the seals share near-identical proportions and script, implying a centralized system of production or stringent quality control. This wasn't folk art, it was institutional, a tool of statecraft in one of the world's first urban economies. Then there's the script, the Everest of linguistic puzzles. The seal's symbols, numbering over 400 distinct characters, cluster in short sequences of 4 or 5, too brief for a full language but too complex for mere pictograms. Some researchers see numerals or clan identifiers, others argue they're phonetic, encoding the lost language of the Indus people. The tragedy is that without a bilingual inscription, a Rosetta Stone for this script, the symbols remain mute. Even AI algorithms trained on pattern recognition have failed to crack their code, leaving us with a paradox: a civilization advanced enough to standardize weights, build grid-planned cities, and mass-produce seals, yet unwilling or unable to leave behind longer texts. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't what the unicorn represents, but why it dominated Indus iconography to the exclusion of nearly everything else. In Mesopotamian seals, gods, kings, and epic battles abound. Here, a lone mythical creature reigns supreme. Does its singularity reflect a society that valued conformity over individuality? Or was the unicorn a protective talisman, its image believed to ward off misfortune in transit? The answer might lie in the seal's final mystery, their abrupt disappearance. As the Indus cities declined around 1900 BC, the unicorn seals vanished too, replaced by cruder, less standardized imitations. Whatever power or meaning they once held didn't survive the civilization's collapse, leaving us with silent stones and a symbol that refuses to surrender its secrets. Holding one today, you're struck by its weight, not just of stone but of irony. These seals were meant to communicate, to label, to ensure clarity across a vast trade network. Yet now, they're the ones waiting to be deciphered, their messages trapped behind the veil of a language we may never understand. The unicorn endures not as a relic of fantasy, but as a testament to a reality just out of reach, a reminder that even the most practical tools can become profound mysteries when their context fades into time. From the Roman dodecahedron's geometric perfection to the eerie precision of Egypt's drill cores, these 25 enigmatic tools aren't just artifacts, they're fractures in the timeline of human ingenuity, revealing just how much we've forgotten. Each one defies the neat narrative of progress we cling to, whispering that ancient cultures might have glimpsed brilliance we're only now rediscovering. Think of Zhang Heng's seismoscope predicting earthquakes centuries before modern seismographs, or the ULFBERHT sword's steel so advanced it belonged in another millennium. These objects force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. History isn't a straight path from primitive to advanced, but a tangled web of innovation, loss, and rediscovery. What makes these tools so haunting isn't just their complexity, but their isolation. The Antikythera Mechanism stands alone in its sophistication, with no predecessors or successors to explain its existence. The Mayan zodiacal wheels and their celestial calculations emerge fully formed, then vanish without a trace. Even the humble Nazca sticks, capable of etching mile-long geoglyphs, represent a fleeting mastery of scale and precision that wasn't repeated. These aren't stepping stones, they're flashes of genius, here one moment and gone the next, as if human knowledge flickers like a candle in the wind. But perhaps the greatest mystery is why we're so resistant to these gaps. We dismiss advanced ancient tech as hoaxes or anomalies, desperate to preserve the myth of linear progress. The Baghdad Battery must have held scrolls. The Phaistos disk's stamped symbols, probably a forgery. Yet every time we assume our ancestors were incapable of sophistication, we underestimate the very ingenuity that defines our species. These tools remind us that curiosity and creativity aren't modern inventions, they're the birthright of every era, even if the evidence now lies buried or misunderstood. So what do you think? Could the Voynich manuscript's bizarre tools represent lost alchemical experiments? Were the Inuits' kill-out drums really sonic maps of the Arctic? The comment section is your excavation site. Dig into the debate, share your wildest theories, and let's keep the conversation alive. And if you're hungry for more mysteries that twist history into knots, hit subscribe. The past isn't done surprising us, and